Hello and welcome back to Pass the Turn. Today you're joining me as I go through my Kadena Slinking Sorcerer deck tech. So this is one that was released last year in the Commander product, and I'm hoping after the Commander experience this year that they go back to more sort of generic Commanders rather than tying it into the set. But that's a whole nother discussion. But I really like the fact that each Commander seemed really different in every Commander set prior to this one, the Ikoria one. But that's a different discussion entirely. Leave your comments in the section below if you agree. Should it be tied to the standard set, or should it just be its own standalone thing? I think it should be its own standalone thing, but again, discuss that with me in the comments. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as well, and hit that little bell notification if you want to be notified of any future videos. So, straight into Kadena Slinking Sorcerer. So she is a Sultai commander, one of my favourite colour pies, absolute value in Sultai. She costs Sultai, so black, green, blue, and 1 for a legendary Naga Wizard. The first creature, or the first face-down creature you cast each turn costs 3 less. So each turn you can cast a morph for free. So each turn is critical as we get into the cards that allow you to flash stuff out later. But each turn you can play a face-down creature for free, and then whenever a face-down creature enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. So there is card draw, and a lot of card draw stapled onto this commander. And the great thing I like about this deck is that creatures turn into card draw turns into creatures then turn into spells, and spells turn into winning games. Although I don't really win games, but you'd like to think that it does. But it's an awesome deck, loads of utility. It can come back from the brink really quickly because morphs are always cheap. And with Kadena out, you're casting them for free, which is then refilling your hand. It's just an awesome cycle, an awesome value engine, and something that I really enjoy playing. Kadena Slinking Sorcerer. So that is the commander. The first thing we want to do with our commanders is protect them. So this is the protection package. Albeit it's quite small, but I think most protection packages are quite small in most commander decks. So you can't protect them all the time. So you don't run too many of these cards, basically. So first of all, Lightning Greaves. Costs 2 mana, 2 generic. Equipped creature has haste and shroud, costs 0 to equip. So a fantastic spell. Next, similar to that, is Swiftfoot Boots. Costs 2 to play, costs 1 to equip, but it does have hexproof and haste instead. So you can target it once the Swiftfoot Boots are on. And then we have our first morph card, and this is in the protection package. That is Gift of Doom. So this is a enchantment aura. If you want to enchant the creature, it will have Death Touch and Indestructible. It does cost 4 and a black to do that off the card itself. But you can morph it face up onto another creature by sacrificing another creature. So there's always going to be loads of creatures out that we can sacrifice to this card as well. And when Gift of Doom is turned face up, you may attach it to target creature. So that target creature that you attach it to becomes indestructible and then has Death Touch. So a fantastic piece of not only a morph card, so you could play this face down, draw a card, and then flip it up later by sacrificing a creature to give Kadena indestructible and Death Touch. Awesome. Great card. Next we have the card draw package, and again the card draw package is small because it's stapled onto the commander, and most of the time the commander will be the card draw package. But first of all, we have Urban Evolution. So this is green, blue, and 3. Draw 3 cards, you can play additional lands. So it can act as card draw and ramp, just refilling your hand a little bit and then getting more lands onto the battlefield. Then we have Secret Plans, an enchantment that costs green and blue. It's an enchantment. Face down creatures you control get +0/+1, so it bumps up all your morphs, gives them a bigger butt, gives them bigger toughness. And then whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, you also draw a card. So again, working with that morph theme, Secret Plans. And then we have Grim Haruspex, which is a morph creature in itself. This costs 2 black and 2 others, or you can morph it face down. And it's a 3/2. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. So again, you can morph it face up for 1 black mana, and then whenever something dies, you can draw a card. Again, you can do that at any time because it's a morph, so it's a state-based action. You just pay the black, it then becomes Grim Haruspex, and you draw cards from any of your creatures dying, or another non-token creature, should I say. So again, not much card draw in the deck because of the fact that Kadena is the card draw, really. Next we have some board wipes, so every deck should be having some form of destroy everything or remove everything when you can, just in case. So the first one is Ixidron. This is an awesome card. It's a creature illusion. It costs 2 blue and 3 others. As it enters the battlefield, turn all other creatures face down. So all of your opponent's creatures, including yours, but it doesn't matter because most of our creatures are morphs anyway, so they can just turn themselves face up. All creatures are then turned into 2/2s that have no abilities, basically. So it turns people's commanders into a 2/2 morph creature that can do nothing against us, because obviously we have loads of morph creatures that can turn face up. And Ixidron's power and toughness is equal to the number of face down cards on the battlefield, or face down creatures on the battlefield. So Ixidron can eat anything, basically, after turning everything into a morph. So a fantastic board wipe and extremely thematic with the deck that we're trying to build, or have built, or will build if you're a viewer. Next card is Bane of the Living. This is an awesome card. To play it normally, it costs 2 black and 2 others. It's a 4/3 insect. When it's turned face up, all creatures get -X until end of turn, where X is the amount that you choose to pay into the morph cost. And the morph cost is black, black, and X. So it basically works as a toxic deluge type of effect on a creature. So a fantastic way of getting around indestructible, hexproof, and just board wiping stuff that could not normally be board wiped. Bane of the Living. And next we have a card called 1,000 Winds. A conditional board wipe, so to play it normally it would be 2 blue and 4 others. It's a 5/6 flying, and then it says whenever 1,000 Winds is turned face up, return all other tapped creatures to their owner's hands. So its morph cost is 2 blue and 5. So after someone's swung at you with, or any opponents have swung with loads of creatures, you can morph the 1,000 Winds face up, and it returns all tapped creatures to their owner's hands. So again, it's an awesome conditional board wipe, but again we've got a 5/6 flyer on the end of it as well, which is very, very good. So next suite of cards is morphing on other players' turns, basically. So a really, really vital aspect of the deck. So first of all, we have Seedborn Muse, a card that actually came in the precon. So it says untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. So that will give you the mana available to cast stuff at flash speed during other players' turns. So again, a fantastic card. It costs 2 green and 3 others. You probably already know what it is, but Seedborn Muse. So these suite of cards now will work together in a fantastic fashion. So Seedborn Muse, similar to that we have Wilderness Reclamation. So that basically untaps all lands you control at the end step, and that costs 1 green and 3 others for an enchantment. And then we have 2 flash pieces as well. So we have Leyline of Anticipation, which gives all your spells flash, and obviously you can begin with it on the battlefield if you have it in your opening hand. But to play it otherwise, it costs 2 blue and 2 others for an enchantment that gives you flash. So fantastic. And then we have Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. Only Planeswalker in the deck. It's only in there for its static ability, but the other abilities can also come in handy as well. So this is a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. Costs 1 green and 2 others. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash, so that allows us to play a morph every single turn and then draw a card if Kadena's out, which is absolutely ridiculous. And it also has 2 static abilities on there as well. The +1 is until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gains Vigilance and Reach, so you can give something Vigilance and Reach, which is quite good. And then for a -2, you can look at the top 3 cards of your library, exile one of them face down, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it. You may look at the card and cast it if it's a creature. So again, it's just another way of looking at the top deck, getting a valuable creature that could be used against your opponents in a certain situation, tucking it under Vivian, and then being allowed to cast that at flash speed, basically, which is really good. So that's a little package there of 4 cards that allows you to cast stuff on other players' turns, as well as replenish your mana. So you've always got loads of mana to use, basically. The next suite of cards is the Manifestors. So manifesting is great. So manifest basically means you take the top card of your library, manifest it face down as a 2/2 creature, and you can flip it up if it's a creature, basically. So that's what this package entails. Obviously, when face down creatures enter, because of Kadena, we will draw a card. So manifesting, again, a great flavour to have in a Morph deck. So the first thing we have is Temur War Shaman. This is a 4/5 human shaman, costs 2 green and 4 others. When it enters the battlefield, manifest the top card of your library, so that put that card onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and you can turn it up at any time if it is a creature card. So again, if Kadena's out, we'll manifest the top card, comes down as a 2/2, draw a card, and then obviously we can manifest it at any time if it is a creature. And its secondary text is, whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, if it is a creature, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. So again, a form of removal on there as well, but a fantastic card, Temur War Shaman, for manifesting. Next we have Scroll of Fate. I'm always, if this is in my starting hand, I'm pretty much keeping that hand, because Scroll of Fate basically acts as another free morph, which allows us to draw another card. So a fantastic card. So this costs 3 mana for an artifact, and it says tap, manifest a card from your hand. So if you got a land in your hand, you could manifest it as a face down creature, draw a card, and then you know that you got that land, if you don't need it, just there as a 2/2 creature. So again, manifesting Scroll of Fate literally turns any cards in your hand into 2/2 blockers, which is ridiculous when you've got Kadena out, because you draw a card as well off of it. And those 2/2s can come in really, really effective later with big kill spells, which we'll get to later. But Scroll of Fate is an awesome card. Highly recommend it in the deck, and it did come with the precon, I believe. Next card is Ghastly Conscription. This is in this manifest category because it does have a massive manifest effect, but it is an absolute graveyard hoser. So it's a big sorcery, costs 2 black and 5 others. Exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard in a face down pile. Shuffle that pile, then manifest those cards. So exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard and face down pile, shuffle that pile, then manifest those cards. So basically, all of those creatures come onto the battlefield as 2/2s. So whenever a face down creature enters the battlefield, you can draw a card. So thanks for Kadena. This can turn into a huge card draw spell. Then obviously you get a huge board state. And as well as that, you can flip up those creatures if you can pay the mana for them, which could be absolutely back-breaking creatures that your opponents have put into their grave. Obviously, this is a soul tie deck, so you want to be targeting someone who has green, blue, or black creatures, because you'll be able to morph them face up for while they're manifested. But again, a great card for hosing someone else's graveyard and then able to use that graveyard to your advantage, not only for a board state, but for a potential card draw and using their creatures against them as well. So a fantastic card. I've never actually used it in a game, but my meta now has a lot of reanimation decks, so it's going to be able to completely hose them if it's available to be played. Next manifesting card is an awesome card, Thieving Amalgam. Always happy to have this out. It just causes absolute chaos, and again with Kadena, loads of card draw. So this is a ape snake that came in the precons. It's 6/7. It costs 2 black and 5 others. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you manifest the top card of that player's library. So you're exiling cards from the top of their library onto your side of the field as a creature, which will then allow you to draw a card from Kadena. But then if it's a creature card, you can then manifest it face up as the creature that you've just exiled, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then whenever a creature you control but don't own dies, its owner loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So that creature that you've just manifested, if you don't own that creature and it dies, that owner of the card loses life and you gain life. So it's not even like they want to kill their own creatures that you've just stolen, because they're going to lose life for doing that. So a fantastic card. It's an absolute menace in the deck, Thieving Amalgam. And finally we have Primordial Mist, which is a fantastic enchantment. This didn't come in the precon, but is a necessity in this deck, or necessary upgrade. So it's an enchantment, costs 1 blue and 4 others. At the beginning of your end step, you may manifest the top card of your library. So you can, put that top card library face down as a creature, maybe draw a card off of Kadena and morph up later if it is a creature. But you get that board state there. Again, cards just turn into creatures in this deck. So your deck basically has 100 creatures in it, because you can just turn them into creatures with stuff like Manifest and Scroll of Fate and Team of War Shaman. All of these cards that I'm telling you about now basically turn your deck into creatures, or opponent's deck into your creatures. So again, a fantastic mechanic to have in this deck. Not only that, so you can manifest a card on your end step if you want to, but you can also exile a face down permanent you control, face up. You may play that card this turn. So again, if there are dead cards that you can't normally morph, like for instance if you morphed a land, so let's say you manifested an island, that you can't turn that island face up normally because it's not a creature, or if it's an instant or sorcery, you won't be able to turn it face up because you can only manifest creatures face up. So Primordial Mist allows you to exile a face down permanent, turn it face up, and then play it this turn if you want to. So all of those manifested cards that may fall into the category of not being able to be manifested, Primordial Mist will sort that out for you. So a fantastic card, great package to manifestors. A rogue character is now coming into the fray, and that is Ixidor, the Reality Sculptor. He could be utilised as a commander on his own, but Mono Blue Morph probably not going to be as effective as Sultai Morph. So this is a really awesome card. Spiked in price when the Morph deck was announced, but again, I picked it up a long time ago. This is blue and 3 for a 3/4 Wizard Legend. Not even a legendary creature, a Wizard Legend instead. That's how old it is. Onslaught, fantastic set. So his static ability is Facedown Creatures you control get +1/+1, or Facedown Creatures, sorry, get +1/+1. So he can buff other morphed creatures as well that are on the battlefield, but likely it is you're not going to be seeing many. And then he can then, for 2 generic and 1 blue, he can turn target Facedown creature face up. So sometimes you do have some morphs that do cost a lot to flip over, but Ixidor can just be like, you're alive, you exist. 3 mana, you exist. Which can come in later, extremely handy when we get to the huge beaters of the deck. Ixidor can just be like, rise for 3 mana. So fantastic card, Ixidor Reality Sculptor. Doesn't really fit into any category, so I just thought he'd have his own place alongside Kadena. So the next package, we have the removal package. This can encapsulate counter spells, destroy target artifact or enchantment, loads of different things, but we'll go through those now. The first one is Silumgar Spell Eater. This is a Naga Wizard, similar to Kadena actually. To play it normally, which you'd probably never do with any of these creatures, it will cost 1 blue and 2 others for a 2/3. You wouldn't play it for its normal cost, that's for sure. You'd play it down as a morph creature. Then you can Megamorph it face up for 1 blue and 4 others. Megamorph means when you flip it face up, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, so it's actually buffed up from its original form. And then whenever this card is turned face up, counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So a great way of dealing with huge splashy plays. If everyone taps their mana for a huge Torment of Hellfire, you can just be like, no, I flip my Silumgar Spell Eater up and he eats that Torment of Hellfire, and this now is a 3/4. Unlucky. Next card is Nantuko Vigilante. This is an Insect Druid Mutant, so its normal casting cost is 1 green and 3 others. It's a 3/2, but obviously you don't do that. You play it down as a 3/3, play it down as a 2/2 morph creature for 3. When it's turned face up, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and you morph it up for 1 green and 1 other. So a nice piece of artifact or enchantment removal. Anok Survivalist. Its normal cost is 1 green and 1 other for a 2/1. When it's turned face up, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls, and you Megamorph it up for 1 green and 1 other. So again, all these creatures you won't be playing for their normal cost unless you're desperate, but I don't think you should be. Next card, awesome card, Keru Spell Snatcher. So this is a Naga Wizard, yet again. Normal casting cost is 3 and a blue for a 3/3. When it's turned face up, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. And you may cast that card without paying its mana cost for as long as it remains exiled. So a fantastic way of just stealing someone else's spell or someone else's win con and just denying an awesome play, which is fantastic. And its morph cost is 2 blue and 4 others, so it's pricey. but it will remain on the battlefield as a 2/2 creature blocker for you, which can then morph up at instant speed to nick someone else's massive spell. So fantastic card. Next card is Chrome Shell Crab. This is a 3/3, costs 4 and blue. We never play that for its normal cost, so you play it down as a morph. When it's turned face up, you may exchange control of target creature you control and target creature an opponent controls. So again, a fantastic way of not only removing a threat, but also getting that threat onto your side of the battlefield. And a lot of the time, you will have useless morphs on the battlefield. Well, useless to your opponents. Let's say you've manifested an island. You can exchange that creature because it's currently in a morph state with your opponent. So you could say, right, you're going to have this 2/2. It's a manifested island. And I'm going to have your Avacyn, Angel of Hope. Thank you very much. Cracking card, Chrome Shell Crab. Next card, Stratis Dancer. This is a Digin Monk. Costs 1 blue and 1 other for a 2/1 with flying. When it's turned face up, counter target instant or sorcery, and its Megamorph cost is only 1 blue and 1 other. So again, it's a counter spell that you can play from the board. So you play it face down as a 2/2 creature as a blocker, but then if there's a big spell somewhere, instant or sorcery, that you don't like, you can flip it face up for to give it, flying and give it a 2/1 stat block to counter target instant or sorcery spell. So again, all these morphs are fantastic because they're creatures that then turn into spells, and again, it gives you loads of options as to whether what you want to do. And it distills the fear of the unknown in the opponents. Next card, Disruptive Pit Mage. This is a wizard. It costs 1 blue and 2 others. It's a 1/1, and you can tap it to counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. So again, a great way of reducing those big splashy plays, and as well as that, it's morph as well. So you can put it down as a face down creature, and you can morph it face up for 1 single blue, and then tap it to counter a spell of a ridiculous value. So again, if they're tapping all their mana, you can just be like, nope, I'm going to morph up the Disruptive Pit Mage, tap the Disruptive Pit Mage, and counter that spell. Unlucky. Great card. Another counter spell, Void Mage Apprentice. This is a 1/1 wizard. Again, costs 1 blue and 1 other to play normally, but when it's turned face up, counter target spell, and its morph cost is 2 blue and 2 others. So again, can be morphed down as a face down creature, then to counter something later. Double utility. Next card, Skin Thinner. This is a zombie. It's a 2/1, costs black and 1. When it's turned face up, destroy target non-black creature. It cannot be regenerated, and the morph cost is 2 black and 3 others. So again, morph it down as a face down body, turn it up later, destroy something. That's the great thing about morphs is every single morph has a secondary ability, but you don't have to use that secondary ability. You can just establish your board state and just have a load of blockers out to protect yourself until you play that spell, basically. So just great deck. Silumgar Assassin, the next one. It's a 2/1. It costs 1 black and 1 others. And when it's turned face up, destroy target creature with power 3 or less and opponent controls. And it megamorphs up for 2 generic and 1 black. And obviously it comes into play with a +1/+1 counter if you do megamorph it. And then creatures with power greater than Silumgar's Assassin's power can't block it. So it then becomes an unblockable for creatures that have a higher power. So again, a good little card there, Silumgar Assassin. And finally, last card in the removal suite is Ice Feather Avon. So this is a 2/2 flyer, which costs green and blue if you want to play it normally. But then when it is turned face up, you may return another target creature to its owner's hand, and you morph it up for a green, blue, and 1 other. So again, a good little flying blocker, but again, it can be used to return a target creature to its owner's hand if something is coming at you, or you just don't want to see that creature on the battlefield this turn. Again, great card. So the next set of cards are utility cards. Don't really fit into any sort of package as such, and these are all cards that will just give you additional value for all your shenanigans, basically. So the first one is Death Mist Raptor. This is a 3/3 Death Touch. It costs 2 green and 1 other, so you can put it down as a normal creature and still have a very, very valuable blocker. But it can be morphed down as well. So it also says, whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, you may return Death Mist Raptor from your graveyard to the battlefield, face up or face down. So again, it's a constant threat, constant looming threat. You can just keep bringing him back as a 3/3 Death Touch or as a morph. It's completely up to you, and he can be Mega Morphed as well. So when you Mega Morph him up, he gets a +1 counter, which will then turn him into a 4/4 instead. So you do have that option, of course, and the Mega Morph cost is 4 generic and 1 green. So just a nice little card, always keeps coming back as well. So that's Death Mist Raptor, and it's a very, very effective blocker because it's got Death Touch. Next card is Kadena's Silencer. This is a Naga Wizard. Costs 1 blue and 1 other. It's a 2/1, but then when it's turned face up, counter all abilities your opponents control. So that's absolutely ridiculous. It can counter all sorts of abilities, and it just messes with your opponent's strategy. And the Megamorph, it's a Megamorph as well, so it comes in as a 3/2 if you Megamorph it, and it costs 1 blue and 1 others. But countering all abilities your opponents control can swing the tide of a game. So very, very useful card to have. Next card is Den Protector. This is a 2/1. It costs green and 1 other. Creatures with power less than Den Protector's power can't block it. So again, could be useful for getting through little bits of damage here and there early game if you wanted to. But when it's turned face up, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So a fantastic way of just getting back cards that you want by turning it face up. And then it becomes stronger when you do turn it up anyway, because it's a Megamorph. So great card, Den Protector. Next card is Vesuvian Shapeshifter. This is 2 blue and 3 others for a Shapeshifter. As a Vesuvian Shapeshifter enters a battlefield or is turned face up, you may choose another creature on the battlefield. So any creature you want. If you do, until Vesuvian Shapeshifter is turned face down, it becomes a copy of that creature, except it has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may turn this creature face down. So when it morphs face up or enters the battlefield, you choose any creature on the battlefield and the Shapeshifter will become a copy of that. But at the start of your upkeep, you can then choose to turn the Shapeshifter face down again, for then it to turn face up again to copy something else on the battlefield. So again, it's a fantastic way of cloning your opponent's creatures to reap the rewards of whatever abilities you want on that clone creature at any given time. So a fantastic card, Vesuvian Shapeshifter. Next card, Weaver of Lies. This is a beast creature from Legions. Absolutely awesome. It's a 4/4. It costs 2 blue and 5 others, but you can morph it as well, of course. When Weaver of Lies is turned face up, turn any number of target creatures with morph other than Weaver of Lies face down. So it's a great way of getting the morph flip up triggers again and again and again and again, because you can just keep flipping the other creatures face down, like the Den Protectors and stuff like that, to then bring them face up again to get their morph activations again. So fantastic card, Weaver of Lies. It allows for extra activations and extra utility on the creatures that you've already morphed face up, putting them face down again and then flipping them face up again. So fantastic card. Next card, Willbender. This is pretty good. This is a human wizard. It costs 1 blue and 1 other. It's a 1/2, but whenever it's turned face up, change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. So this really will hose those removal spells like Anguished Unmakings, Mortifies, Swords to Plowshares, all that sort of stuff. You'll morph Willbender face up, and he'll be like, that Swords to Plowshares is not coming at me, it's going at Timmy instead. Unlucky. Fantastic card, Willbender. Always good to redirect spells, and you'll see a deck tech soon on my Calamax, the Stormsire deck. Obviously that features Deflecting Swat, which is basically this ability, and that's saved me multiple times. It's an awesome card, Deflecting Swat. But Willbender, sorry. Next card, Master of the Veil. This is a great one. So this is 2 blue and 2 others for a 2/3. When it's turned face up, you may turn target creature with morph face down. So again, similar to Weaver of Lies, it will flip up and then also turn another creature face down. So if you have Weaver of Lies out and Master of the Veil out, you can just keep morphing your creatures face up, face down, getting the morph abilities again and again and again. So great card to pair with Weaver of Lies, but again, another great card for just getting more utility out of those morph face-up effects. Next card is interesting, Soul Collector. This is a 3/4 vampire creature from Scourge. And this costs 2 black and 3 others for a 3/4 flyer. But whenever a creature dealt damage by Soul Collector is put into a graveyard, return that card to play under your control. So this is a great trickery card because you can just attack with this as a 2/2 creature and then be like, right, yeah, I'm going to pay 3 black, it's going to kill your creature, and then I'm going to gain it onto the battlefield under my control. So you really want to be enchanting the Soul Collector with the Gift of Doom, so it has Death Touch and Indestructible, because then it can just kill anything, and then you get that card back onto your side of the battlefield. So again, great trickery card and an awesome utility card, Soul Collector. Next card, Mischievious Quan, a fantastic card. Costs 1 blue and 4 others for a 3/3 beast. It says when it's turn face up, copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for that copy. So this actually might go in my Calamax deck. I completely forgot that this is another card that could actually do that. But yeah, when it's morphed face up, choose target instant or sorcery spell and copy it. You may choose new targets. Its morph cost is 2 blue and 1. So a fantastic card, fantastic way of copying a spell. And then not only that, but he can turn himself face down again for 2 blue and 3 others. So you can keep recurring that copy ability. It definitely needs to go in Calamax. Definitely needs to go in there. I need to get myself another one of these. Mischievious Quan, fantastic card. Next card, Ugin, the Ineffable for More of the Spark. This costs 6 generic mana for a 4 loyalty planeswalker, and tacked on it says colourless spells you cast cost 2 less. So if you don't have Kadena out, Morphs will now only cost you 1 mana because they cost 3 generic mana to play. It's a colourless spell, and it will cost you 1 now instead. So Ugin, fantastic static ability. So if you don't have Kadena late game, you can still cast your Morphs for 1, which is great. Then it also has the ability of +1, exile the top card of the library face down and look at it. Create a 2/2 colourless spirit creature token with, when that token leaves the battlefield, get that exiled card into your hand. So it doesn't quite give you the face down trigger. When I first put this in, I thought it would be a manifest trigger, but it's not. It's sort of like manifest, but it will basically take that card off the top of your library, put it somewhere, create a token. That token, when it dies, you get that card back, basically. So it doesn't actually manifest it, which is a shame. If it said manifest the top card of your library, that would be awesome. But it doesn't. But it's still very, very good for card advantage and creating board state as well, which is great. And then the -3 is removal. So destroy target permanent that's 1 or more colours. Permanent as well, which is great for getting rid of enchantments and artifacts, and no, not artifacts, enchantments and stuff like that. So really, really good. Next utility card, Golgari Charm, costs 1 green and 1 black. You can choose one. You can give all creatures -1/-1 till end of turn. You can destroy target enchantment, or you can regenerate each creature you control. So normally I use that for destroying enchantment or regenerating all my creatures. So great utility card. And then Sultai Charm costs black, green, blue, and you choose one again. Destroy target monocolored creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So it could have been in the removal piece, but again, it's utility. You can destroy artifact or enchantment, a creature, or discard, or draw 2 cards and discard a card. So I thought I'd put it in utility instead. Cool. So now we have the big beaters of the deck, or establishing huge board presence. So these are big creatures that do big things, basically. So first of all, we have Hooded Hydra. So this is a Snake Hydra creature. This came in the deck as well, I believe, the Morph deck. So green, and X. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. When Hooded Hydra dies, create a 1/1 green snake for each +1/+1 counter on it. So again, you can pump a load of mana into this, create a massive creature that when it dies, just blows up into a confetti of little snakes. So it has built-in protection in that sort of way, but it gives you instant board state as well when it does blow up, and you can also morph it face down, and then you can morph it face up for 2 green and 3, and then when it's turned face up, you put 5 +1/+1 counters on it. So you do have the ability to play it face down as a creature, potentially draw a card off of Kadena, as well as get all those other triggers for morphs entering, and then you can morph it face up for a big creature that when it dies, gives you a board state. So great card, Hooded Hydra. Next card is Brine Elemental. This is really, really interactive, fantastic card, and if you look at the top corner right now, when I played this deck on camera, I actually played this card wrong. I played it worse than what it should have been, and it's still really locked a player out. So, ridiculous card, absolutely. So it's a 5/4 elemental creature, costs 2 blue and 4 others. When it's turned face up, each opponent skips his or her next untap step. So when I played this card on the video, I actually said, target opponent, Josh, you skip your next untap step, when it should have been Josh, Troy and Leo not untapping. So it's a fantastic way of just stalling the game out, basically time walking people. If you do have, if they have spent all of their mana and they can't do anything else, you're basically taking an extra turn after flipping this face up. So a fantastic card, Brine Elemental. Next we have Primal Whisperer. Primal Whisperer is a elf soldier, costs 4 generic and 1 green for a 2/2, but it does have, it gets +2/+2 for each other face down creature in play or on the battlefield. So a fantastic card. It's always going to be massive. So I think the lowest I've seen this is an 8/8. So a great big beater. And to morph it face up, it costs 1 green and 3 others. So a great big card is always going to be massive on the table. Speaking of massive, we have Krosan Cloud Scraper up next. I think I do need to add a Krosan Colossus as well. Let me just double check if that does have morph. I should have done my research beforehand. I think it does, but I think that does also need to be added. It does have morph, Krosan Colossus. So I do need to add the Krosan Colossus in here as well, I think, as part of this package. But yeah, going back to Krosan Cloud Scraper, this costs generically 3 green and 7, so it costs 10 mana. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay 2 green. So it does have an upkeep cost as well, but it is a 13/13 creature. So it can stand toe-to-toe with Eldrazi's. And it can be morphed face up for 2 green and 7 others. So again, a huge card that does have win cons attached to it if it is in play. Next we have Thelmon Height Druid, Thelmon Height Hermit, should I say. It is a Elf Shaman. It's a 1/1, and it says all saplings get +1/+1. That's pretty irrelevant at face value, but then it does have, when it's turned face up, create 4 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. So again, when it's turned face up, it will give you a huge board state straight away, and they're all going to be 2/2s as well. So they might as well all be morphs, but they're going to be little buffed saplings. So again, a great card for just establishing a quick board state if you don't have the morphs in play. Next we have Saga Mahler, just an absolute beat stick. This is a 6/6 trample hexproof for green, blue and 4, but it can be morphed face up for green, blue and 3. So you can get this out fairly early, and it's just going to be smacking people in the face, and it can't be removed by single target removal either, so because it's got hexproof. Next card is Broodhatch Nantuko. This is a tricky board state enabler. So this is a insect druid, costs 1 green and 1 other. It's a 1/1. Whenever it's dealt damage, you create that many 1/1 green insects. So basically what you want to do is you want to put this down as a morph. Obviously draw your card off Kadena if she's available. But then when someone swings into you with a huge creature, you want to flip this face up, take loads of damage on the Nantuko and create that many 1/1 green insects, which will establish a huge board state for you. So a great trickery card that opponents can run into to create instant board state for yourself. So a great card in that respect. And finally, we have Salt Road Ambushers. This is a Hound Warrior, so it costs 3 generic and 1 green for a 3/3, and it says whenever another permanent you control is turned face up, if it's a creature, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So again, whenever you morph a creature face up, you're going to be getting more counters, more power, and this card can also morph itself face up as well. Megamorph, you can Megamorph it up for 2 green and 3 others, and it comes in with a +1/+1 counter on it, which is good as well, because you can play it as a morph if you need to. The next part of the deck is the win cons, or big spells that can win you the game, because a lot of the time with this deck you will have a lot of morphs out, you have a lot of creatures out, a lot of board state at all times. And again, as I said, this deck can come back from the brink, because you can just, if you don't have anything else to do, normally you'll just be able to play a morph out, so you'll be able to establish that board state constantly, and then if Kadena's out, draw cards and refill your hand. But these cards are just big pump spells that will turn your creatures into massive threats. So first of all, we got Return of the Wild Speaker. This can be used for a draw cards ability or buff ability. So it's a instant as well, which is also good. It costs 1 green and 4 others. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures, non-human creatures you control. That's one ability. Or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 at the end of turn. So you can effectively turn all of your morphs into 5/5s with that, and then swing out for the win. So again, big pump spells are very, very welcome in this type of deck. And then we have Overwhelming Stampede. So again, a fantastic buff effect. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain Trample, which is legit, and they get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. This costs 5 mana to play. So again, another fantastic win con type card in green. And then we have something similar, Biomass Mutation. This could actually be better than Overwhelming Stampede, because it literally just turns all of your creatures into X's, where X number of mana to be pumped into it. So it costs Simic Hybrid, and X. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX at the end of turn. So it can be more effective than your Overwhelming Stampede, because Overwhelming Stampede gives +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures. So sometimes your creatures are fairly weak, unless you've got the Crowsand Cloud Scraper out, when that would be ridiculous if you gave them all +13/+13 and trample. But the Biomass Mutation will simply just make those creatures that powerful, or that defensive. So great card, Biomass Mutation. And finally, we have the ramp cards in the deck. There's not many in here, because it's very, very low to the ground, CMC. First of all, we have a Soul Ring. Costs 1, taps for 2. What else you need? Obscuring Ether. This is a enchantment. It costs 1 green, and it says face down creature spells you cast cost 1 less. So that's great. So it makes all of our face down creatures cost 2 instead of 3. And then, of course, you can turn this face down if you want. So you can turn this enchantment into a 2/2 creature for 1 green and 1 other if you do need the blocker for whatever reason. Then we have Dream Chisel. This is Ixidor's tool, basically. Face down creature spells you play cost 1 less. So again, it just makes sure face down creatures cost a little bit less. Cryptolith Rite. Normally you're going to have a load of creatures out, so having them all tap for 1 mana of any colour is absolutely ridiculous. So it needs to go in the deck. For any decks that have a lot of board presence, Cryptolith Rite welcomes you. And similar to that, Songs of Freyalise is a Cryptolith Rite for 2 turns, and then a Stampede effect after that as well. So it costs 1 green and 1 other, and it has 3 lore stages. So the first lore stage and the second lore stage say, until your next turn, creatures you control gain tap at 1 mana of any colour. And then on the third lore stage, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance, trample, and indestructible at the end of turn. So you get 3 attack on someone with a buff, which is fantastic. And the counters stay on as well, which is really good. Next we have Trail of Mystery. This is a ridiculous card on the deck. If you've got this in your starting hand, you want to keep it there because it's ridiculous. So it costs 1 green and 1 other for an enchantment. Whenever a face-down creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may search library for a basic land and put it into your hand after revealing it, then shuffle your library. Then whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, if it is a creature, it gets +2/+2 at the end of turn. So not only does it give you lands in your hand to make sure you hit a land drop every turn, it also buffs up creatures if you are morphing them face up, so a fantastic card. Then we have Farseek, so it costs 1 green and 1 other for a sorcery. Search library for a plains, island, swamp or mountain and put it into your onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. So a nice little cheap way of getting some lands out early game. And then we have the Cultivate and Kodama's Reach, which basically do exactly the same thing. So for 1 green and 2 others, search library for up to 2 basic lands, put 1 to battlefield tapped and the other into your hand. So that's the deck. that is the deck, and it works really, really well because, as I said, it's constantly churning out creatures. Your creatures can turn into spells, your spells can turn into card draw, your card draw can turn into creatures. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's a really, really good engine. With the upgrades that I've made, it is a fantastic engine which works really, really well. So, going to go through the lands now. The lands in this deck, although I have a lot of Sultai decks, I have an Otrami, I have a Yarok, I might have a Zagzara soon. I insist on having different land bases, different mana bases for each Sultai deck. So I could probably upgrade this, but at the moment I really can't be arsed. So it's basically just a load of budget lands in here. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really affect this deck because everything is fairly low to the ground anyway, so you're not really going to have many mana issues in that regard. But as you'll come to see, there's a lot of tap lands and stuff in here, and other sort of utility lands. But again, I don't really have that much of an issue in this deck with the mana base as it is. So first of all, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 swamps. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 islands. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 forests. So that's the basic land in the deck. Then we have a Terramorphic Expanse. So you can sacrifice it, search live for a basic land, put it onto battlefield tapped. Then we have a Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. So this will tap for 1 mana, normally, colourless. Or you can add 2 mana if you control 7 or more lands. Submerged Boneyard comes in tapped, but it adds a black or a blue. Zoetic Cavern, this is a land that taps for 1 colourless, but it can be morphed as well. So again, if you've got this in your hand and you just want to try and draw a card off Kadena, this land turns into card draw and a creature. So great, fantastic. You can also, if you want, you can morph it face up at another time and it becomes a land for you. So great card. Golgari Guildgate enters tapped, adds black or green. Woodland Stream enters tapped, adds black, blue or green. Evolving Wilds, tap it, search live for a basic land, put onto battlefield tapped. Exotic Orchard basically taps for a mana of any colour, depending on what your opponents are playing. Simic Guildgate adds green or blue, enters battlefield tapped. Llanowar Wastes, this taps to add 1 colourless, or it taps to add black or green and does 1 damage to you. Thornwood Falls adds green or blue, comes into play tapped but gains you a life. Tomb of the Spirit Dragon, this will tap to add 1 colourless to your mana pool, but then you can pay 2 and tap it and gain 1 life each colourless creature you control. So again, it's a little bit of life gain on a land. So if you haven't got anything else to do, you can just pay 2 mana and tap this land to gain life equal to the amount of colourless creatures you control, which is going to be quite a lot because they're going to be morphs out all the time. Then we have Opulent Palace. This comes into play tapped, but it adds all of our colours. We have Command Tower, which comes into play normally, adds all of our colours. We have Yavimaya Coast, which taps for a colourless or taps for a green and a blue if you want us to deal 1 damage to us. And then we have a Foul Orchard, which is a black and a green, but it enters the battlefield tapped. So as you can see, the mana base it could be optimised, but again, because it's low to the ground, low mana curve, everything can be played for pretty much 3 mana of colourless nature as well. I don't see the need to upgrade this particular mana base. Yeah, if there's anything I've missed in this deck, please make sure you leave a comment in the section below as to what I would be missing in the deck. But it's a morph deck, so you know you have to have all those morph cards in there to just make sure you get the engine going, have all those abilities available to you, have the ability to turn cards into creatures, creatures into card draw into spells, spells into card draw, all that sort of stuff. And again, that's why I love this deck. It's just because it's just an ebb and a flow. Everything can be anything in this deck, and that's why I love it. But I love Sultai. Sultai is amazing. It's an amazing colour pie. Gives you access to so many awesome things. But yeah, that's my Kadena, the Slinking Sorcerer deck tech. Leave your comments in the section below if you think I'm missing anything, and make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, please. That'll be fantastic during this time. And hit the little bell notification if you want to be notified of any more geeky content coming your way. Pass the turn. Thank you very much. See ya.